But I'm Devin. I'm with Heartland CPR. I'm the lead instructor up there. And we just thought it would be beneficial while we're all in isolation to kind of sit down and talk about how to do hands-only CPR since we're not able to do much else right now. So just kind of going to jump right into that for y'all, all right? Now, the main thing that I want to really push and make sure that, I'm sure y'all are tired of hearing about putting on gloves right now, but it's very important that we wear gloves and personal protective equipment. When doing that, just make sure that you remove any jewelry that you may have on, watches, rings, bracelets, whatever. You don't want to cut those gloves, and then they're useless at that point. So be aware of that. But in any case, you're just going to put those gloves on before you provide any sort of aid to that person, ideally. If this is a family member or a friend, you kind of make a judgment call there and decide what's best for that situation. But in any situation, we are just going to start. Our scene's going to be safe. We'll go ahead and get down, make sure we've got that personal protective equipment on, and then we're just going to start with shake and shout, "Are you okay?" They're not. We're going to call for help. We're going to look for any visible signs of life, any regular breathing, anything. Keep in mind, when someone is in cardiac arrest, it's very often something called agonal breathing happens, and that's where they can either pop up and breathe, they can kind of snort, kind of a snore. It's just not regular breathing. So what we're looking for in all of this is just regular chest rise and fall like we have right now. If you don't have that, you're going to assume that they're in cardiac arrest and that they need those compressions, okay? So we're looking for any regular signs of life, any breathing, anything. There's nothing. Call 911, get an AED. Now, whenever I tell you to do that, it's 2020. You have no idea if someone's actually calling for help. There are situations where people have come up, taken a picture of a situation, put it on Snapchat, and then just walked away because they don't want to be associated with that situation. You'd be sitting there and they could be recording you on Instagram Live, and everybody just assumes that those people have already called for help when no one has. So that bystander effect is real, where everybody assumes something has happened and it has not. So you don't want to be sitting there doing this for 45 minutes and nobody's there to help you. So just be aware of that. So call 911, get an AED, and then we're going to bare that chest completely. Understand here, there's a big disconnect I found recently. I saw a stat that said outside of a hospital, women are 27% less likely to get CPR than men, and that is because of breasts. And that is because no training program I've ever seen prior to ours have ever seen talk about what to do if you have a female victim specifically. So be aware that you have to bare a chest completely in order to give effective compressions to anyone of any sex, okay? So that's going to include a bra. So you're going to remove any clothing from that chest in order to give effective compressions. And then from that point, you're going to go halfway between that nipple line, lower half of that breastbone or sternum. We're going to give those compressions 2 inches deep, not to exceed 2.4. Not that we're going to know if we're going that deep without a feedback device telling us, but most people aren't compressing deep enough for a lot of reasons. One being they've kind of got a micro bend in their arms like that, and they're basically giving compressions from their elbows down, getting really tired really early, not doing much for that victim. So if you can lock your arms, kind of put your hands just below your shoulders, kind of arch your back to the bottom, stick your butt out, lean all of your weight into that chest. It's going to use your upper body strength as opposed to your arm strength. Let it go a lot longer, a lot more effectively throughout, okay? Now, we are going at a rate of 100 to 120, so staying alive is the way most people remember that. I put together a playlist on our YouTube page. Feel free to go look at that. And I found that basically any song out of the 70s is probably going to work. They had a pretty similar format to everything back then. But you're going at a rate of 100 to 120, 2 inches deep, again, not to exceed 2.4. And then whenever I tell you to fully recoil, I don't mean pop up and down like that. I see a lot of people that do that. You're going to miss that heart. You're going to hit all sorts of other stuff. So keep your hand on that chest, but do let it come up to that natural position each time, just so that heart can adequately fill up with blood, pump that into the brain, back down to the heart. Something that's really cool about this dummy specifically, this is Braden, what he does is he actually shows us the flow of blood from the heart up into the brain. So this is what so you can see here that it takes a few really good compressions in order to get that blood up into that brain, okay? So you've got to be giving really good compressions in order to get adequate blood flow up there. So just ensure that you are doing that. Most people aren't compressing deep enough, again, so just make sure that you are doing that. And so you just continually do that. You just keep giving compressions up until somebody with more advanced training gets there, an AED shows up, a lot of different stuff can happen at that point. So be conscious of that. And then once EMTs have gotten there and relieved you, just make sure that you do remove those gloves properly, that protective equipment. Now, as far as the gloves go, we are going to make sure we're never touching the outside of the gloves. Gonna peel that off of one hand, roll that off into the other hand, and then 2 fingers underneath the underside of that other glove and pull that off just like that. Again, never touching the outside of those gloves. And then this is really important. A mistake that's made a lot is people will just take these gloves off and then just toss them on a counter or something because they're like, I'm done, thank God. But that is not ideal. So just make sure that if you don't have a biohazard bag, which who has that at home, but if you don't have a biohazard bag, just put those into a plastic baggie or something, seal that up, and then EMTs will take this with them whenever they go, okay? So be aware of that. Now, as far as all of this goes, I know social distancing is kind of an uncomfortable situation. You know, loneliness was already a problem. It's already being called an epidemic prior to this happening. So just instead of social distancing, let's just call it physical distancing. Make sure you check in with people, take care of people, FaceTime, grandma, do whatever you got to do to kind of stay sane throughout all this. And again, trust science, not social media. Don't trust just a random post. Look into it if you think that it sounds valid. If it does, that's great too. But just do your best to take care of each other, be nice to each other, and we'll see you on the other side of all this. Thanks, guys.